Hey everyone, Shark here, still slightly recovering from a lot of fun this weekend, and I hope you're having a fun and safe Halloween, but for the moment, we've got some banners to talk about. I pulled this directly from the livestream, so let me know if you like this style and if you find it helpful.
Very nice. Event Wish, the Moongrass's Enlightenment. Boosted drop rate for Physic of Purity, Nahida, Dendro, as well as Bennett, Reivew, and Noelle. So let's talk about this banner. So we've got the Noelle banner. We've got the Nahida banner. And we've got the Yoimiya banner. And then, of course, we've got their signature weapons, 1,000 Floating Dreams and the Thundering Pulse, with the Rust, Flute, Faonvious Lance, Widsith, and Sacrifical Greatsword. Let's talk about the character banners first. So, we'll start with the 5 stars. Nahida looks to be really amazing. We don't have that many Dendro characters, but she is clearly going to be the best one, and probably the best for quite a long time. She is really strong in terms of both the flexibility she brings. She can play on field, she can play off field, and Archons have been historically really strong, except for Zhongli at the start of his initial release. He was actually incredibly weak, but he got buffed to be really good, so we'll still count that as Archons are very strong. And based on the trailer and what we got to see, she does seem to be like really useful just for the amount of variety she can bring to a bunch of different teams. And that also is very nice that she's really free to play friendly too, because like her weapon and team comps don't really require specific team options to make her work. But this is all based off of just first impressions, so without any hard numbers, unless you're just going to wish for the little Dendro deity regardless like I am, it is best to wait a few days or even a week if you can to figure out any problems or shortcomings so it can give you a better idea and better advice if she's worth it for you. And then of course we have Yoimiya, one of the characters with the most fun personalities in all of Genshin IMO, and her power really hasn't changed very much. If you're looking for a really good single target pyro DPS, then she is a great option, but in terms of total damage and total power, Hu Tao will still do more in single target, and then if you're looking for a pyro DPS for AoE situations, Zhongling is actually better than she is by a strong amount, very significant amount. So if you're looking for the best option for a pyro DPS, then Yoimiya isn't it. But if you want a character that's got a very fun personality and who does great single target damage for boss killing, then Yoimiya is not a bad option at all. Just keep in mind that Yoimiya is someone who really excels at single target damage but not at AoE damage situations, because her AoE damage potential is basically non-existent. That makes her great for fighting a bunch of bosses and annoying really strong enemies, but not that great in terms of fighting a lot of enemies at once. And I think if you're trying to decide between the two of them, you're like, these banners look good, I really want maybe some of the 4 stars, which one should I wish on? I would definitely go for the Nahida banner over the Yoimiya one, because Nahida looks to be way better for most people. Nahida has way more options in terms of team building. She has way more potential for various teams being Dendro. She works on-field or off-field, and she has a lot of great free-to-play options with both weapons and teams. Like her weapon options, like the craftable Mappa Mare or 3-star Magic Guy, don't require you to wish for any Gacha weapons, which is very nice. Yoimiya, on the other hand, she's not quite as flexible as Nahida, just because she has to be on field to do damage and to really be useful at all, and her weapon and team requirements are a little bit more restricted compared to the little Dendro baby. Now let's talk about the 4 stars for a minute. We've got Bennett, Reivew, and Noelle. And those of you who have played Genshin for a little while know that Bennett is the best out of these 3 options. Our unlucky boy is actually extremely strong, and you should be considered pretty lucky if you do have him or if you do get him, because he is not only one of the best 4 stars in the entire game, he is considered to be one of the best characters in the game, period. He generates a ton of pyro energy, He gives you a massive amount of healing and a massive attack buff. And for the longest time, Bennett has felt like he's been needed on almost every single team because he was just so overpowered. But now there's a few more teams that don't really need Bennett or even want Bennett that much, which is pretty good for the health of the game overall. But Bennett is still a really, really amazing pickup. And if you don't have Bennett and don't plan to wish on this banner, I would still suggest picking him up in the Star Glitter shop in November. So if you want to wish for Bennett here and then maybe pick up his constellations, that's a good plan to get maybe a copy of Bennett on the banner, and then maybe his C1 from the Star Glitter shop. And if you are curious about his constellations, the C1 and C5 are his biggest power spikes. Overall, very fantastic. 5 out of 5 fins up. Then on to Reivew. Reivew is very strong in the early game, and up until about like AR40, he's really, really good. But then things start getting a little bit harder because enemies start getting tankier, and you start fighting a lot more ruin enemies that have like 70% physical resistance, so he drops off pretty fast. I actually used Reivew to get my original account out of a giant rut when I first started the game, but really haven't had much use for him since then. So very good early game, falls off later game, later stage of the Abyss, but still a very good character and very fun to bonk things really, really hard. Then we've got Noelle. Noelle I used to clear my very first 36-star Abyss. So the very first time I was able to clear it with all stars, I used a Noelle team, and for that she will always have a very special place in my heart. That being said, however, she's pretty limited. She really wants to be in like an all-Geo team, and she really wants Goro, and she also wants high constellations. Her C6 is very, very powerful. The rest of her constellations, kind of meh, not the best, and she's not like a massive powerhouse like a lot of other characters are. Overall, Noelle and Reivew kind of same boat. Decent at the beginning, fall off pretty hard later in the game. But Bennett, very good early game, mid game, late game, all the time. Just amazing character there. Let's talk about the weapon banner now, because this is kind of interesting. It's similar to these in an interesting way. So if we look at the weapon banner, we got 1,000 Floating Dreams and we got the Thundering Pulse. 1,000 Floating Dreams is a good catalyst for any users who want elemental mastery. So anyone who are doing lots and lots of reactions. Any of your catalyst users that trigger lots of reactions, this is going to be very good for them. However, the EM bonus and damage bonus seems pretty nice, but we also have some really good options for EM catalysts already that don't require you to go super hard on a weapon banner. We've got the craftable Bambamare, we've got things like the sacrificial fragments, which you may have from random gacha, and then we also have the magic guide. All of those are pretty good options for EM catalysts, and they also tend to do reaction bonuses or help you out some other way, which is very, very nice. So while this is a good weapon, IMO it's not worth spending any money on because we have options that'll work pretty good as alternatives that don't require you to spend a lot of primo gems or any other funds. And then we've got Thundering Pulse. Now this is interesting because it's basically just a really nice stat stick. It's got a decent base attack, like higher than normal. For most 4-star weapons, it's 608, so not like the highest end of 5 stars, but pretty good. And it gives you attack percent as part of its passive too. It also has a passive that increases your damage with normal attacks. Most bow characters are not going to be using that passive. It's basically just for Yoimiya, but the other stats are very nice. It's just a general stat stick for most bow characters. And the 4 stars on here are pretty interesting too. We've got Rust, which is basically only used for Yoimiya. It increases normal attack damage by a lot, but decreases charge attack damage. So people used to say it was pretty good on Tartaglia. It's actually not that great because the normal attack damage increase for him is nice, but the charge attack damage reduction is pretty bad because you want to do a mix of normal and charge attacks with him. We have the Flute, which is not a great sword, to be honest. It's got attack percent as a subset, kind of a weird passive that gives you stacks of musical notes to do a little bit of extra damage. So that's kind of meh. Sacrificial Greatsword, ER weapon, allows you to use your skill twice, potentially. decent weapon. Not really the greatest again. Most characters that could run a Sacrificial Greatsword would prefer to have a Faonvious Greatsword instead for the better energy generation. And speaking of Faonvious, we've got the Faonvious Lance, which is probably the best weapon on the entire banner in terms of 4 stars. It's extremely good. And it's one of those things where, like, I wish I had several R5 Faonvious Lances because they're just that useful. Pretty much any spear character, even characters like Zhao, can get a pretty decent use out of it too because it has a fairly high base attack for 4-star weapons. And then, of course, we have the Widsith, which is an extremely strong catalyst for a lot of different characters. It has a crit damage substat. If it's a high refinement Widsith, it can even outdamage several of the R1 5 stars too. So Widsith and Faonvious easily the best 4 stars of this entire banner. So these are very interesting because the character banners kind of mirror the weapon banners. The 5 stars both seem like they're going to be pretty good. The 4 stars, kind of meh, but there's like 1 or 2 of them that are really nice. So Bennett, extremely good. Other characters, in terms of 4 stars, kind of meh. Same with the weapon banner. We've got Faonvious Lance and Widsith, very good. Other ones, kind of meh. And then here, we've got 2 very good, solid 5-star options. Same thing with the weapon banner here. There's an interesting parallel there. So overall, if I were to wish on this banner and give recommendations, I mean, I'm going for Nahida. I think she's going to be extremely useful. If you're not super jazzed about Nahida or Yoimiya, maybe you do a couple wishes for Bennett, seeing if you get him, but then don't go too hard because, again, he is coming to the Star Glitter store. And for the weapon banner, if you want some pretty decent, maybe pretty nice generalist weapons you could throw in, but again, weapon banners are a giant trap. The 4 stars aren't that great, but if you can pick up a copy of a Faonvious Lance or a Widsith, I would consider that a win.
So here's the verdict on the 3.2 First Phase banners.
It's sort of overpowered in some way, but in other ways it's also pretty meh. So it's a mixed bag.
Anyways, everyone, I hope this review has been helpful. If you decide to pull, I hope you get the good options and dodge the bad ones. And don't forget to like, sub, and turn on the bell if you haven't done so already. Also, let me know how you like this style of editing, which is basically just taking my thoughts from live streaming.
And with that, I think we'll go and fight Raiden now.
Thanks so much, everyone. I love you guys. Stay jawsome, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.